thanks very much to Urbana today. I know they've been in the Kognitiv story for a very long time, and I think, as Thomas said, it's always been a bit of a question as to where we're at, and I think the beauty is that the time is now. Kognitiv, we talk about Kognitiv as the future of loyalty as collaborative, and it was really interesting to hear Mark's conversation, because a lot of what he talked about, which is really creating deep relationships, really understanding your clients, and being able to deliver relevant, unique value that keeps those relationships sticky, is very similar to what's happening in the loyalty space. Loyalty is moving from a very transactional one-to-one relationship to saying, how do I create distinctive value for that? Now, how am I supposed to, do I just click forward like that? Yes, there's my lovely disclaimer. We all know that slide. So I think if you really want to take a step back and say, what was the original conception about Kognitiv? And it was really about the idea that if we think about loyalty as really not the solution, it's really the outcome. What are you trying to create? You're really trying to create all businesses, how they create value is they either reduce their cost of acquisition of customers, they increase the revenue per customer, or they increase their efficiency delivering it. And what's interesting is if we take a step back, loyalty really started on the level of you got your points card, and the average Canadian today has about 18 of them. We only use 2. We use our Starbucks card, our PC Optimum card, and maybe your Aeroplan card. So the idea is, how do we start to give brands the opportunity to give you something more relevant to your consumer and greater value add? And for us, it's really about taking those insights. So instead of saying, you're buying frozen blueberries, Karen, every Saturday morning, and we're going to give you more points for buying more frozen blueberries, when in fact, I'm going to buy them anyway. So how do you actually deliver me greater value? And what that takes is really, it takes being connected to me on a fairly personal level, and really using that data, but using it for me, not for me as clickbait, which is what we've learned. And so really when Peter conceived of Kognitiv, it was about creating this idea of marrying intelligence with connectivity, so brands could really start to be in control over their destiny and their relationships with their consumers. And that really is a complex problem to solve. And we think that we've created the PaaS is really a PaaS, which is platform as a service, as opposed to software as a service. It's the same concept, except it's a construct that says the rails that people are on, or as I like to say it is, we take the wallet, we insert the intelligence, and then you've got the rails, which are our rails, which is the platform. And the idea of having it being a efficient thing and an automated process and using software is to do it on a regular, repeatable, scalable basis, so it's efficient. And so to us, at the end of the day, it's what I hope you understand at the end is really thinking about loyalty as the outcome, not the solution. If you take a step back and say, Kognitiv's we've been at this concept was a few years ago, and I like to say it really came out of the insight that said consumers ended up in the doom loop. And as at brands. So when the internet came about, there was this construct that says, wow, this is fantastic. Now I'm going to be able to go online. I will have access to all the brands, goods, and services I want. It's going to be perfectly priced for me because you're going to know who I am. And because I no longer have all of these distribution costs and I'm really efficient, I am going to get a beautifully curated experience. And then what happened? Amazon hijacked our books. Expedia and Priceline hijacked our travel, and if you go, Facebook actually hijacked us. And so the reality is what happened is we had these, if you talk to Peter, it's predators, but effectively you had a lot of folks that promised this. The original B2B model was, if you give me your customers and assets and goods and services, I can deliver and expand your brand and give you greater distribution and marketing. And we know that that's exactly not what's happened. What happened was Expedia said, for the privilege of you giving me your hotel rooms and first dibs on all your hotel rooms, I will charge you 30%. And then anybody who clicks on my site to look at your hotel room, I'm going to charge you another 30%. And then I'm going to make sure that you have no clue who is showing up at your hotel at the end of the day. And we call that the $1 trillion disconnect, right? So effectively, you now have a doom loop with the internet that basically says, now I am clickbait. So instead of me getting this incredibly personalized, delivered, curated experience, I'm actually, clickbait, so that way, so-and-so can charge ads, and it just basically exploded the ad model, right? I get the price per click. And that's why I call it the doom loop, because now that extra 30 to 50% of cost, or 30 to 50 cents on the dollar, is going to the brokers in between me and the brands I want to interact with. And so Kognitiv was all about, how do you create a platform, how do you create an ecosystem where you eliminate those and you can carry on? And so we sort of think about it, if you conceptualize it, you kind of create our own little proprietary marketplace where we can take the intelligence about the consumer, about the offers that the brands have, and we create a collaborative environment, not unlike the one Mark was talking about, that says the accountants know something about you, and we know something about you, and so we can work together to deliver you the best value that's actually relevant, rewards you for good behavior, and delivers to you the value that you care about. And that takes two pieces. One is giving back brands, allowing them to regain control over their data, which is not only about their inventory, their pricing, their things, but also their connectivity with you as the consumer. The second piece is, as the consumer, creating both, we've heard a lot about zero party, first party, second party, but basically giving you control over your data about yourself and what you want to share with whom. And so if we think about it, it's the idea that says, today, if I want to get a specialized offer, I can therefore, if I'm working with some of the brands that we work with, I can say that I am a NAB customer. We're global all over the world, so I am a NAB, which is an Australian bank. I'm a NAB customer, but I also have Qantas points. I actually have Aeroplan points too, and by the way, I'm going to let you know that, so that way you can deliver to me the best value. And so that's really what it's about. How do we go about doing that? How do you build a platform that does that? Well, it really starts, and it's right in the middle. I hate the way the slide is drawn, but right in the middle really starts with data. And what we do with that data and what we allow is you organize data. But a lot of our data is built around identity resolution. And what increasingly I think you're going to be hearing is, we call it the consumer genome, which is really understanding, who are you? How do I transform that data so it's meaningful and it's actually actionable? And then we add to that the layer, the behavioral layer, which is kind of like Mark's sit down with the family and have the conversation. But it's that behavioral layer, what we call the cognition engine, which allows us to put scoring, predictive activity, and optimize. And that's where we can take in data that actually cross-matches. And instead of having that single facet of me walking into Loblaws, buying my frozen blueberries on Saturday morning, which they think is for my smoothie, but I don't use smoothies, and kind of having that, what I call a one-to-one relationship, is now having facets, because now that you can see that basically in March, I'm going skiing, not on spring break, but I'm going individually, so therefore it's maybe just me and not a family, etc. So you start to see other facets of me, and being able to create those abilities to actually start to understand and predict my behavior. And therefore, it starts with advanced loyalty. So we take our clients through what we call the SMART journey process, which allows them to start thinking about consumer segments, different types of behavior patterns, and that way they can start to think about what are the appropriate programs, campaigns, etc., that deliver on that loyalty, which is really still that one-to-one relationship, how I use my points, how I use my data, how I use my subscription, because loyalty isn't just about having your points, it's about how do I engage with you. And then the next layer really is about data activation, which is really taking those insights and now saying, and I like to say, there are lots of data companies out there, and if I hear about machine learning and AI one more time, really what it is what are the questions you're asking of the data? So you get a lot of companies that are all about, we can aggregate your data better and show you pretty pictures. The question is, okay, now that you've shown me what, well, so what? Where's the insight? How do I understand what that means? And then the second piece is, okay, well, now what? So Karen's a 2 million miler, with Air Canada. What does that mean? What do I do with that? How do I deliver value? Well, giving me more miles might not be the big idea. Maybe I want to stay home. So the reality is that it's understanding that and taking it to the next level. Why you see enabling services underneath that is because we are really innovating a new space. People are used to taking loyalty and doing points redemption and merchandise redemption and those kind of reward ops stores. We really work with them at a strategic level, not unlike when I was at Bain & Company. We had different types of services to show people how to use the tool, or why Deloitte has such a big practice helping people use Salesforce, right? It's how do I use this? How do I use this tool to maximum effect for my business? in English, so to take it away from the technology chart and move it into a simpler chart, one way the thing is if you think about it, for some of you who might not be familiar with the story, but we acquired the loyalty solution assets from Amy last year, and we have now fully integrated those. And what's been very exciting is, because they understand they want scalable, repeatable, is all of those clients have literally come on to what we call our KLS, which is the loyalty platform that we've built. And it gives them access to the data hub and the cognition. And that's really about taking, and this is standard fare, this is table stakes to be able to take leading loyalty programs and doing campaigns and doing, and managing the loyalty program itself, the different characteristics, your different segments, et cetera. But the next step is really, this is the power. And the power is because you are inside our trusted walls. Our CTO was ex-RIM, so we are absolutely in the security vault in terms of using data and being able to distinguish and identify either what we call the hashtag ID, which is me saying, take my PetSmart plus my Nordstrom's account plus my Aeroplan points and give me the best solution. So a multi-party unique ID, and really looking at extensive consumer analysis to understand, how do I want to activate that? Does that give me better CRM opportunities, better ad opportunities, or really better reward? The real power comes in partner collaboration, because we have now eliminated the brokers. We now can take my assets, and I can now say with our Mercedes-Benz client, or with Curaleaf, someone was talking about cannabis earlier, but basically now say I have a partner ecosystem, and there's a network effect, because now together we can invest, because it's all about share of wallet. At the end of the day, this is customer lifetime value that we're measuring, and the reality is that, if PC wants to sell you something more than you can get from Shoppers Drug Mart or Loblaws, they've got to go beyond their scope and partner with others. And so there's this incredible opportunity to partner. And so we really believe that by having eliminated the brokers in the system and really giving you that peer-to-peer trading capability and collaborative capability, you really are in control of where your brand goes, where your inventory goes, and where your reward goes. And if words aren't your thing, if tech diagrams and if words aren't your thing, pictures are your thing. If you think about loyalty, kind of baseline loyalty, you sort of think about it as there's that campaign, here's the offer, I just got my Nespresso thing, download the app, here's what you get, more coffee, more chocolate, etc., which I can always use. And so the idea is, though, from a loyalty point of view, you've got member management and then what we call attribution, which is how they attribute. It's kind of like when you see your Netflix, is you can see that your attributes, this is a 97% match, a 98% match. Well, you start to see it, the multiplier effect, which is the 1 times 1. It's really 1 times 1 is really should be more squared. But the idea is taking that insight, driving it down to effectively a personalized thing. And it's not necessarily Susan or George or Amy. It's really a personalized set of groups, and then really automating that process so that way you can extend out and you can extend the reach. Because it's easy to do it around a kitchen table. It's not easy to do it again and again and again. The beauty about this is that we then move into what we call the collaboration mode, which is we have travel stores that allow you to do this. We have what we call, if you think about it, it's the currency exchange. I'm a NAB client. I want to exchange my points for Qantas. It could be as simple as that kind of currency, right? How do I change my points and use them for something that I actually care about? Or it can be broader, which we call the affiliate mall. A lot of people, and you see it with cards, you see it with the Scotiabank Scene card. Now you're starting to offer other things. You go onto the Air Canada site. Now you can get a deal at Starbucks and Indigo and all of that kind of thing. And that's if you think about the affiliate mall. So the idea is that when you come into this protected environment, this data, you now can give permission to get better, more relevant offers. And those kind of partnerships have a real network effect for us. So where do we end up? Because I always like, if you're going to present the doom loop, you got to present the virtuous circle. So we really have the tools to create the virtuous circle, because really what we wanted at the beginning is I want to go on my computer in the morning and say, Karen, we know who you are, and therefore we've figured out what your needs are for the week, right? And so if you think about it, there's both the acquisition and conversion tools, which is the smart journey. We can figure out who we should be targeting, what are the profiles, and what are the best, most relevant ways to have you convert. But then it's the how do we keep you? What's the sticky part? I feel like I'm stealing from Mark's presentation this morning. But what's the sticky part? And it's really thinking about how do I engage you with loyalty tools that are relevant to you? I mean, my favorite example is when I started with Aeroplan, I've had an Aeroplan card. I was one of the first Aeroplan members. And to this date, I get coupons for Chanel No. 5. And the reality is I have never, if they've ever looked at my Visa statements, I've never purchased perfume. I'm a migraine sufferer. And so the reality is what are you doing? Well, what they saw was a female executive flying a lot. And so they figured that we're moving away from that. And it actually is a dissatisfier, right? When you send me something that's so relevant. So our engagement tools are very much about not only managing your rewards and understanding that, but it's really gamifying it for you. So starting to understand your social engagements, your anniversaries, your registrings, and those kinds of things. But more importantly, understanding who you are through your life cycle. Because who I am on a ski trip is different than who I am in my everyday life and then who I am when I'm traveling. And so this is the kind of thing of understanding who is your first-time buyer, your repeat buyer, and then who are the other partners I can collaborate to deliver better value to you and a better consumer experience. The product data tools that we have, and so these are all the key pieces of the journey, and the product data tools that we have are really some of the most sophisticated because, as some of you might know, Peter came from the yield management world, so everything that we have built is to understand how to optimize the value of your assets and really understand what that return is, so that way if you are investing against this target group versus that target group, what is your expected return and what are the things. In the hospitality world, that's a lot to do with the season, and the location. In other places, it's really understanding about the cross-sell and what the post-purchase dynamics are. And then collaborative commerce is really our ability to connect inside our world to the different players where we call it smart reach, which is being able to identify this is a very, very attractive customer set for you. What's interesting is here's how it overlaps in the Venn diagram in terms of the customer set for someone else. So if you're Mercedes, our solution is a very compelling tool in terms of the access and reach that they can have in terms of that. And so it's really creating this library or this toolkit that says throughout the journey, and the beauty is, as we are learning more and more and more, we're creating really a proprietary data set inside our network and inside our system that allows us to cycle through this virtuous circle smarter, with more directed and relevance, and understand who the other partners can bring and what value add they can drive. It's ultimately, at the end of the day, what do businesses care about? How do they add value? Well, they drive their revenue up and they improve their efficiency, so they've got a greater return on investment. But the beauty is that now, we started in the hospitality space. We have very, very deep expertise in financial services and retail and CPG. So with the AMIA acquisition, we were able to add multiple verticals, which basically says in terms of the reach into the wallet, there's multiple ways that we can do. Where we are from a technology point of view is a much more faster and more consistent process. What one of our CTO likes to say, 5 years ago when I joined the board, we were sort of selling off the investor deck, and every time I say, well, can I see a demo of the product, it kind of was still in people's head. The beauty is that we are really in a place now where we are well down that product roadmap that I showed you in terms of building the platform and the ancillary services that go with it. So to that date, we have over, if you think about the reach of our network, it's almost 200 million plus loyalty members, and deep, deep, deep experience and expertise. From a financial point of view, because we are at an investor conference, we have 60 global brands. We acquired about any number of them with the AMIA thing. What we were really, really excited about, because it's always a bit of a question mark, AMIA's model was a little bit more of a consultative, services-driven model, but we have successfully converted all of their clients to the loyalty platform and our platform. And in terms of the business, we have managed to retain that business. There was a lot of, after the Aeroplan sale, AMIA was seeing their loyalty business disappear because people felt the 800-pound gorilla was gone. But basically, now our business is literally 88% of our business is subscription-driven, the rest of it being services. So we have a very strong recurring revenue base, and we really do believe that we are transforming, we're redefining loyalty into what I would really consider is the end goal, which is consumer engagement for the betterment of a consumer experience, or what we really like to call the win-win. So with that, just happy to take any questions. Yes. Sorry, I can't see who it is, but.
Thank you. First of all, completely fascinating. This is a space that absolutely drives me nuts. The end outcome for me is always disastrous. And to your point, the things that come in the mail, I get the Chanel as well. I don't know how, and as a native technologist, thank you, how they get to that conclusion. I'm interested in all the data that you must have to source, and then you did pick on the AI ML trend, which I greatly appreciate too. How do you continue to bring all of that data in and draw decisions on it, because it's often changing and you can't make good decisions on bad data?
Right.
I suspect you have a lot of that, and I was wondering if you could kind of talk a little bit about it.
Sure. I think a couple of things, and I don't know how familiar people are with the data, so I'm just going to take a moment to explain. One of the things that's happening, it used to be that the early models of machine learning AI from the net was they would scrape words, right? They would literally just scrape words, and give you word clouds to give you a sense of what the chatter was like. And then we started to have our own profiles. We didn't realize we had our own profiles and our own data out there, but I think we've now all learned that, if you've clicked on the wrong thing and that cookie grabbed your data and gave that to you. And so to your point, depending on how that data, if we think about it, it can come in as third-party data, it can come in as fourth-party data, which really just means it's aggregated in different ways, right? So to your point. So we actually do the opposite. We start with clean data, relatively, because we start with, I find it easiest because I take my huge toque-wearing, Beats brain chief data officer and I translate it into English. And basically we take whatever is in your wallet and you've given us access to, whether it's the loyalty wallet, so we start with a client's loyalty data, which is sometimes good, sometimes not good, to your point. It goes through into our GDM layer, which is basically our data management layers, because to your point, it needs to be cleaned and aggregated. And then from there, we are able to add to it. That's sort of where this whole concept of zero party comes in, right? Which is starting to add to that. And so you don't taint the data, but you start to add to it in a controlled way. I do think that is our secret sauce in terms of being able to create that database that can be queried, or what I find fascinating is the way we do the prediction and scoring, because depending on what question you're trying to answer, the issues that are relevant when I'm trying to decide to buy a Mercedes or not, or whether I'm an attractive thing, is very different than if I'm buying my frozen blueberries or I'm buying a trip for my family, etc. And so what's amazing is the scoring methodology, to me, reminds me of the adjudication method that a lot of creditors use, right? Depends on what's the thing. Is it an asset-backed loan? Is it a credit card, etc.? The other piece that we often have is there's often credit cards, because in the financial service, you've got credit card data. So part of it is understanding, is the data coming off, is it, and I'm going to say this wrong, but is it, I was going to try to use the anatomized, but is it anonymous data? And so basically it's just coming off a scanner tape, like IRI, who's been a partner for us. So the real issue is, to your point, what am I doing with that data? And I think the mistake, to your point, people made is people thought more data is better, as opposed to being selective about the data and understand what variables are important. And that's where I think the behavioral piece that we're starting to learn about data, because I go back to my Frito days, the old conjoint analysis, and all I learned is that people lie, in market research, right? Well, you buy this at this price, and then whatever, and all I know is that, no, I go into the store and I go, wow, I really like that blue one. So nobody asked me that question. So I think that's one of the things that we're able to start to see is what do people actually do. It's not unlike what Bain realized, which is how they built their entire retention. So that's really what we're doing. And what's nice, though, is I like to say that we're building a 360-degree view, and I know so many people say that, but we are building a 360-degree view of you, because I don't just see you in your Loblaws relationship. I see you traveling. I see you on holiday. And so therefore I can build a much more robust picture of who you are. Yes.
Sorry, very simply, what's your website, please? I can't find it.
It's Kognitiv.com, except Kognitiv does not have an E at the end, which there's a marketing company called Kognitiv with an E. We don't have an E. Oh.
I have a question going back to engagement tools.
Yeah.
and frequency. Why is it that we cannot engage clients or potential clients without driving them crazy? So what I'm talking about is, and I'll have to give a very concrete example.
Please.
As an Indigo customer, why do I have to get bloody emails every single day? And that's just one example of, I find the frequency is just so
Ridiculous.
intense, even with brands that I love.
This goes back to the generic tools, right? Because we used to, and this is why loyalty is not considering your behavior. It's kind of like how you used to walk into Shoppers Drug Mart and immediately you buy your toothpaste and immediately you got a thing for more toothpaste. And it's like, you know what? I just don't use that much toothpaste like that quickly. And so a lot of it was what we would call push marketing, right? If I bombard you enough, it's the spaghetti approach, right? If I keep throwing stuff at you, it's why, now every time, I don't want the 10% discount, you can't have my email. I don't want it because it's just more stuff in my email thing. And so that's where we see, that's the old, I'm going to push, which is not about me, the consumer. It's not about you, Beth, delivering you a better experience. That's a stinky experience. What you'd really like them to do is to take their time and say, we're going to have a quarterly review of Beth. And what has she spent and where has she spent it, et cetera. And that's much more the kind of experience we're talking about. So when we go through Smart Journey, we say, what are the relevant things? Because for some people, you may never email them, right? You may just, and it's back to the idea that in the old days of kind of, white linen service, you used to show up to a hotel and they knew that you were bringing your 2 kids or whatever. And, I used to love it. I re-engineered Continental Airlines at one point and I stayed at the DoubleTree and they knew after the second time that I don't like chocolate chip cookies. I like chocolate, but not chocolate chip cookies. I like their oatmeal raisin. And that's what would be on my pillow, right? So I think it's back to contextual, and that was your question, right? It's being able to contextualize the data, which means I need to be able to look at you other than just Saturday morning when you're buying your frozen blueberries. Yeah. Okay.
Actually, I wear Chanel number 5, but not through a loyalty program.
Yes.
My question is, I understand how businesses and brands would benefit from this enormously. What measures are taken to protect consumers' privacy, since there is so much data, and I think the term you use is 360-degree.
So one of the things we did, and it kind of came from the RIM days, if you were the old technical, is what people didn't realize that when we moved to iPhones, we became just prey to everything. But in RIM, you had your literally closed what they called the walled garden. You were protected. I mean, I remember it. I was in the fintech world at that point, and it was fantastic. We've effectively created multiple walled gardens because what you also want is, I don't want what happened to me over here on vacation. I don't necessarily give you permission to use that when I'm in Shoppers Drug Mart. So we have built a multi-layered, sometimes it's what they call a single sign-on, so that it's kind of like when you get your verification code, a single sign-on to give you permission, but it is strictly opt-in. And it's strictly proprietary within those walls. It cannot be used to go outside those walls.